Good morning, artists. This is Mikefox, and figured I'd do a little bit more comic school with a just real quick tutorial about something I've been working on lately. Specifically, I'm going to go over using gradient maps to color your art in Clip Studio Paint. Um, there's a lot of ways that people approach this. I messed around with it for a few weeks. Some of them I found didn't quite offer the color saturation I was looking for, and most tutorials out there are actually catered to Photoshop. And while they're close enough, everyone knows Clip Studio doesn't quite work the same as Photoshop. So, um, what does using gradient maps mean? For me, it means going from a black and white colored piece of art to a full color piece of art. And there's a lot of reasons you might want to start in black and white and then use that to color in your piece. For me, it's just because I get lost when I'm trying to do the hues and values in full color, full saturation from the start. I'll, go real dark with, one section of the drawing, and then I'll not carry that consistency over to the next. If I'm using a lot of detail, there's just too much to think about in a particular area. So for me, even when I was a traditional artist, pencil and paper, black and white and shading was kind of my jam. I'm much more comfortable there, and it's 2020, so I have to go and use color. So I worked a while and found myself a workaround. Um, so what are gradient maps? Um, Gradient maps can be found if you go over to your Edit tab, under Tonal Correction, the very last one there at the bottom. And what they do is they assign a different hue to a different value, which is to say, they assign a color to portions of your art based on how dark or light they are. So how you achieve this is that Clip Studio does come with a bunch of presets, but they're mostly specific tools, so you'll want to play around on your own. What you do is on the left side of this slider here, you click your little node there, and then you jump down to this color box. And what this will do is it'll assign whatever hue or color you put in here to the darkest value. I'm going to go with a nice dark red. And if you have the preview set on, you see everything that was jet black is now red, and then it applies appropriately on this gradient or this slider here. I still have the brightest colors, or everything that's white, set to white. So just for contrast, I'm going to give you a nice bright color there so you can see. Now everything that was white in this drawing is blue, and all the values and all the hues are assigned automatically in between. You can also mess with this and just throw sort of a curveball in there. Great, now we got a little bit of green. And you click OK, and there you go. Obviously, you'd want to do a few more steps because this isn't what you want your final art to look like. Before I get into how that works, let me just show you a little quirk of Clip Studio that I did not find. I was trying to use the Photoshop tutorials, and it did not help me out because of this. I'm just going to grab my airbrush tool, and I'm going to draw just a clear gradient. We have jet black here in the center, all the way to right here on the or white here on the right. So you'd think I'd be able to apply my gradient map, and it would go over those colors and apply them like we thought. Like I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have dark red for the blacks, and then for the whites, I'm going to pick a nice bright blue so you can see it. Oh, but gosh, it's only applying the red. And the reason for that is that Clip Studio sees this layer here as just black with different transparencies. I don't know why, but that's what it does. Maybe that's common. I'm not smart enough to tell you. So I played with this for a while, and I found the easy solution was to just simply combine my shading layer here with all the different values with a white fill layer beneath it. And now, once I merge those two layers, I go back to my tonal correction. I select gradient map. I select my color here. And I select my color here on both ends of it. And now it knows the difference. So how do we use this to actually color in a piece? So we're going to jump to my little drawing here I've been working on. We're going to assume that you've done the work with the getting your line art done, doing your shading in black and white, and of course that you have your flats. And obviously color theory applies to all of this and picking your flats and your shades and everything. But that's a little beyond the scope of what we're doing today. I'm just showing you how to use a tool today. And I'm going to make a copy of this so I have it for reference, and you'll see why in a second. But, so, let's take my shading layer here. And what I want to do is combine that shading layer, which is really just a transparent black and white layer. And I want to combine it with a flat white backdrop. So what I do is I right click on my flats, I click selection from layer, create selection, and I go over to my layer, new layer, fill, and what that does is it creates a completely new, blank fill layer, and then what it does is it puts a mask on it so it's exact to your flats. And then what I do is I select my fill layer and my black and white shade, merge selected layers. Let me get rid of that example one. And now I can begin filling in this with the gradient fill. So how do we go about that? Well, the method I choose is I go to select color gamut, and let's say I want to color her orange fur here. Let's start, the type that's on her hip. Well, on my flats layer, I select that color gamut, and it automatically selects everything I've colored in that shade of orange on the flats. And then I go and select my fill layer. I go to Edit, Tonal Correction, Gradient Map, and here's where I get a little fun with it. Next to your color box here, there's a little eyedropper. So what I'll do, how I start is I select that layer or that color in the flats for both endpoints of the gradient, and it fills it in. Then also what I'll do is I'll put a little extra node in here, and all you have to do is click to set up the node. And the idea here is that the this shade that's already in my flats is going to be the base color, and then what I want to do is put the shading that's darker and lighter. So the darker will be the shadows. So what I do is, and again, color theory applies, but we're not talking about that today, so I'm just going to be really generic with it. I'm just going to give it a darker shade of orange, basically brown. That's what the shades are going to be like. Don't worry, we know we're not seeing them, but we'll get there. And then I'm going to go up to the very, very rightmost node, and that's going to be my highlights. So I'm just going to make it a brighter color. And there you go. And what this does is it gives you a rough idea of, is it taking all that black and white work I've done and giving it some color and shading. Now, what I do is I play around with these sliders. The idea here is that, you want to customize the sliders to the, the different, the type of values that you've used. Sometimes that means pushing it really far. Or for this, let's say I didn't like that color there, and I want the brightest color to be the original one in my flats. And you slide it until you really get what you're looking for. Like, let's see if I put in just a slightly brighter color for my highlights. There we go. And to me, that looks fine enough for now. So I click OK, and then I deselect, and boom, I've colored in the orange fur she's got there. And you basically just go back to your flats, select your color gamut. Let's select that little tan fur underneath. And then you go back to your shading layer, select gradient map, and do the process over again. What I would suggest is before you begin any of this, create the color palette that you're going to want to use. Use your color theory to figure out what color the shadows are going to be, what value they're going to be, what your highlights are going to look like. And there are plenty of videos out there over that, and I may do one myself just to show, but this is just basically a process that you repeat. You fill in your whole piece this way, and then you've used gradients to color in your black and white shading layer, and you've done so in a way that retains color saturation, which is really the point there. But yeah, that's about as far as I want to go today. I just wanted to show you how that tool worked and the method I'm using, the way I've found that's the fastest and gives you the most saturation. There's a lot of other ways, a lot of other artists do this. Some may look at this and say it's totally wrong, but this works for me. and now you have a base of how to use that tool. And please, by all means, find your own way of using it, find a better way of using it, and let me know. If you found this useful, you can always subscribe to the YouTube channel, share my work. But that's it for today, kids. Get drawing.